So, when a friend asks if you'll put a tour together for the Edinburgh Royal Military Tattoo in Scotland, of course you say yes. I was thrilled to put this together since I had never been before. I chose a location outside of the city of Edinburgh in a town called Musselburgh. This hotel used to be the home of the late Queen Mum's sister. All 7 guests had a wonderful visit here. We spent our first 3 nights. After a nice welcome dinner and a good sleep, the next morning we got up and headed into the borders of Scotland. Our first visit being Roslin Chapel. They had a guide come in, tell us a bit of the history of the chapel, and then we had a lovely visit. Meet Fergus. One of my guests gave him to me, and he became our mascot for our trip. We headed south to Galashiels to the Great Tapestry of Scotland. Then, afterwards, ended up going down farther south to Jedburgh and the Mary Queen of Scots Visitor Centre and Museum. All I can say about this is wow. Loads of history, loads of information, and it was free. We ventured even farther south into northern England, into the town of Berwick upon Tweed. Now, there wasn't a whole heck of a lot to do there, but we did find some lovely hot, fresh donuts to share with the group. And of course, we had to stop for our obligatory Welcome to Scotland pictures. Here's our driver Craig, glad to be back on Scottish soil. We ended the evening at Eyemouth Beach for dinner. This statue depicts the widows and bairns of the fishing disaster from October 14th, 1881, when 189 fishermen drowned. The next day we had to ourselves, so I met up with a friend at the Firth of Forth. One of the perks of the job, he took me to lunch. After spending the day in Edinburgh, we met up for a tour of Mary King's Close. Then we all headed to the castle to find our seats for the Royal Military Tattoo. What an absolutely stunning show. This has been going on for 74 years. They have pipe bands and dancers and singers from all over the world. I highly recommend you go see this show some year. I'll gladly put one together again. And the next day we were up and moving again. This time we headed north. Our first stop being Dunfermline Abbey, the final resting place of King Robert the Bruce. A lovely free visit. Stopping for lunch in the town of Perth, of course I had to get my Greggs. Cheap eats. We stopped in at Ian Burnett Highland Chocolatier for a chocolate tasting. Everyone raved. What a fantastic visit that was. Highly recommended. This is Carbridge, the oldest stone bridge in the Highlands. And of course, Johnny Fox's, our favorite pub. Culloden Battlefield. You've heard me all talk about that many, many times. Such a somber place, but I really think it's a must-see when you're in Scotland. Full of history, full of information about what happened at the last battle on Scottish soil. And of course, the Highland cow. We were able to make it into Clovacairn, where they had the old megalithic burial grounds. The sign said, "Don't feed the cows," but we all said, "What sign?" We got a chance to get to Urquhart Castle along the Loch Ness and Ellendonan Castle before we ended up at the Dewsdale Hotel on the Isle of Skye. We're out venturing into the Isle for the day. It was cold and windy and wet, but we all enjoyed it very much. There's yet another castle we got to visit, the home of the MacLeod clan. MacLeod of MacLeod. There can only be one. A stop at Kilt Rock was a must. We're heading off the island today, down back into the mainland. We did get a chance to stop at Glenfinnan, although we didn't get to see the train. We did get to see the viaduct. Here we are at Neptune's Staircase before we stopped in at Loch Lomond to walk down and get a beautiful view of the loch. We ended our evening in Glasgow, my favorite location of all. We actually ended up spending 4 nights here. I took a walk in the city one day, went to the Macintosh at the Willow, and some obligatory pictures, of course, of Scotland. Happy birthday to our Laird Colin. Stirling Castle, a must visit, one of my absolutely favorite castles. We stopped in at the Wallace Monument, the Falkirk Wheel, and the Rosebank Distillery. Delicious. And of course, we had to stop to see the Kelpies. Moffat, wow, another day in the south. This was a must place to visit. Everyone loved the town of Moffat. What a fantastic place, and oh, the ice cream to die for. Here we are in Dumfries. We stopped in for lunch, took a walk in the town, and yet another castle. This castle actually has a moat around it. Carlaverock Moat Castle with a real moat. Very interesting. We had to stop for our standing stones, and there, Lag Tower. My friend and her sister are actually related to the family that built that. We said goodbye to some of our guests today. The rest of us took off to yet another castle. This time we went to Culzean Castle in the south part of Scotland. What a fascinating place. And yes, that's a real alligator. This was the home of the Clan Kennedy. From here we moved on to Ayrshire and the Robert Burns Museum. This was such a cool location. All about the history of Robert Burns. They even had some of his clothing, including his stocking. And his family history. We moved on down to Brig O'Doon. Such a beautiful location. Here are pipers piping in a wedding party. Of course, we had to stop by the Robert Burns Birthplace Museum. And the town of Ayr. Before we had a lovely whiskey tasting along the water. We caught yet another ferry to the Isle of Arran for a few nights. And yes, of course, another distillery. The Lag Distillery. Highly, highly recommended. I learned so much from Alistair that totally blew me away. We stopped in at Blackwater Foot Beach, grabbed a quick little bite to eat before we ventured out farther into the island to really enjoy our day on the Isle of Arran. Karen called this the tour of castles because we hit quite a few castles on this trip, but all were in different types of ruins. It was fantastic visits. This was a little gin bar right on the beach. Here's our hotel for our 2 evenings, and I had a lovely Cranachan dessert. Stopping in Lag on our way back. All about the Vikings. We took a nice cruise on Loch Lomond. Before we ended up back in Paisley for our farewell dinner and the end of our tour.